Okay, okay, folks. This is Fred Caney and Connie Fox, and we are with the Virginia, Kentucky Bigfoot Research Group. And this evening we have M.K. Davis on here to share with us. How you doing, Mr. Davis?
Well, yeah, odd you said that you busted your gut. I actually did bust my gut. I've got a couple of broke ribs, I think. Um,
Ah,
yeah,
okay.
yeah. It's if I sound kind of funny, like I'm panting or hurting, it's because I am.
Heck yeah. Tell us us tell us folks that don't know too much about yourself a little bit.
Well, I kind of backed into the Bigfoot field through my interest in astronomy. Um, I was particularly astrophotography. Astrophotography just is taking pictures of space objects with a telescope, and those objects are very faint. Many of them are, and you get kind of good at rescuing faint details from a photograph and using filtration and stack negatives and things like that. And I, I became int- I became interested in the Patterson film when I saw a couple of photos from it that
Okay.
were high quality, and they had been filtered, and I recognized that they'd been filtered. Someone was trying to boost the contrast and get the most out of it, and I said, well, you can't get a good picture from a bad film, so here's two really good frames from it, and there should be a better version of it somewhere. And I began a query or a quest to try to find better images from the film and ultimately to get the film, the best versions of the film. And let the film tell its own story, not just interpretation, but if it were good enough and could be pushed a little bit, that it might actually, tell its own story about whether what.
Oh, okay. Connie, you have a question? You have a question for MK?
Connie.
Connie. Uh, okay. Bono. Bono, you want to ask MK a question? Bono,
Yo,
you want to ask MK a question?
Okay, Nikki just
sure,
joined.
Okay.
sure
Huh?
do.
Go
I'm
ahead.
kind of behind here. What was that?
Now I'm
Say
about
what?
to ask Mr. Davis a question.
You
Um,
got me lost here.
okay.
Okay. MK.
Just
Bono's getting ready to ask MK a question right now. All right. Go
Okay.
ahead.
My question is, uh, MK, how many Sasquatch do you think, or do you think there were any other Sasquatch in that video? And if so, how many Sasquatch additional to Patty do you think were in that video?
Well, the as the story goes, there were seven that were being pursued.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Patty kind of shows she dominates that film, no question about it. But
Right.
there, I have no doubt that there are others probably in it. But at 100 more feet or at 200 more feet, it becomes harder to distinguish.
Right.
So a lot of people have said, well, I see this or see that. I see one example that I think could likely be another Sasquatch in the film, and that's in the trailing part where she's walking away there. But it's
Right.
like I said, it's when you get a photo is a single frame is nothing but you know light.
Think Frey froze on us.
The more
There it is.
the more you magnify it, you also magnify those flaws that are inherent in it, and to the point where they become a detriment to the film. So, you know, it's harder and harder to recognize, you know, everyday things, trees, rocks, as you blow them up. It's what they call angular resolution. The size of the lens is the limiting factor in how much you can enlarge. So his lens was only about an inch. So the film itself is really good. People say it's a bad film. So go ahead.
No, we was waiting on you. You kind of froze up there for a second.
Okay. Yeah. Let me make sure that I'm on.
Okay.
Well, I can't get my call Dropbox to come down.
Okay.
Yeah, here we go. I'm on Wi-Fi, so that's as best I can do.
Okay, cool. Let me ask you this: what, in your opinion, what do you think Patty is?
Well, you talking about the nature of the Bigfoot there?
What do you think she's a primate?
Now,
Do you think she's a human hybrid with a hominin?
Everybody's freezing up.
Oh shit! Hello.
I hear you.
Okay. Yes. So, but yeah, it's like it. What do you think she is in particular? Do you think she's her own species, or do you think she's something else we haven't discovered yet?
Well, it's like this. She's got all the tools of humanity.
Right.
You know, she walks upright like a human being, but there are certain aspects of her that go well beyond human, and one of those is just her sheer mass, her weight. Right. It's far and above beyond what a human that size would weigh. In other words, what I'm saying is that that she weighs more per square inch than a human does.
Oh wow!
Which that to me that really that kind of shakes you up a little bit. You can see that in that really good version of mine where she plants that foot that one time and that whole leg shakes just from the downward motion when she plants it. The flesh and blood, the whole entire leg is built differently to accommodate more density.
Right. So in other words,
everything's going to be bigger and beefed up. The vascular system is going to have huge, thick walls. There's going to be big bones. There's going to be everything in her is going to be more massive and redesigned to accommodate weight, sheer weight.
Yeah, because when I had that one come out about 5 feet in front of me back in '81, it was like looking at a huge brick wall, but the face was human-like. It looked like a human and everything, you know. So it kind of blew my cookies, you know, but I couldn't move, so I just stood there and I looked at him from his head all the way down to his feet. And
I went last October to the film site, and I had some Japanese gentlemen with me, film crew from Japan, and we came upon a series of about 10 or 15 tracks, and these tracks were so deep. They weren't that long. They were about 13 and a half inches long, the prints, but they were like 4 inches deep, where I couldn't even hardly get an inch deep, stomping my foot. Well, you see what I'm talking about? For some reason, they weigh more per square inch. They weigh more than they should. If they were a human being the same size, they would weigh considerably less. So, you know, as to being a human being, I hesitate to say yes because of that. Now,
Um,
I took a film while I was there. Those gentlemen wanted to reenact Patterson filming the Bigfoot. So after they got through, I said, let me take my camera. I'll be the Bigfoot, and let me reenact from her viewpoint what Patterson and them would have looked like. So I took my camera, and I was familiar with the walk. She took 4 steps without looking at the ground in front of her.
I noticed that.
So I did that. I took 4 steps without looking at the ground in front of me, and then I turned back around, and then I did a split screen when I got home with the Patterson film and me running at what I consider to be normal speed for the Patterson film, and she finished that little 4-step walk 25% faster than me. And that's not possible, considering her bulk and size. The biomechanics are all wrong for that. So the only conclusion I could come up with was that the film was running too fast.
Right, right.
All right.
Right.
How many, wait a minute. Connie, you got a question? Connie.
Connie.
Oh, wait a minute here. Okay. What
Yeah,
about,
Connie,
I've watched. Yeah.
okay, go ahead. Go ahead and ask a question,
The
Connie.
heck, Mike's not
Go ahead.
films on Patty and that, and some people talk about she's got a scar on her one of her thighs that you can see the way the muscles move. But I was wondering what your thoughts were on it.
So I hate to draw conclusions, but I have the very best images from that film. And in the area that
Please.
they caught, okay, is it
Go
frozen?
ahead, MK.
Okay, the very best footage from that film, the very best frames, which came from the original that I got from Patricia
Yeah, it
Patterson
kind
herself.
Okay.
Okay,
All right. How far was the,
of,
how far was she actually, before, when the video was made, how far exactly was she from Gilman and Patterson at the time when she come out of the woods?
They were in different places.
yeah, that's right, that's correct. They started out in one place. That's walk sequence 1, and then it ends. It ends with her bending over, and you can see her rear ends point straight at the camera, and then that's the end of it. The next frame, she's out in the open upstream, and she does the second walk sequence, which is the one where she looks back.
Right.
Her distance varies constantly because she's moving at an angle away from them. So when you start the film, she's this high, and when you end the film, she's less than half that.
Wow.
So people say, well, she's only this big on a frame. I say, which frame? Which frame are you talking about? Because it varies tremendously. When they were at their closest to her, it was close enough that you could see resolve things as small as a grape,
Oh, wow.
or an eyeball. The eyeball would resolve. So and that's backed up by several people who had examined the original film. So anybody tells you that it's shaky and grainy, if it was 25 speed film, that's not a grainy film at all. You can make a mural that would fit on your barn with 25 speed film.
Yeah, yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
you know, that's what one of my long-term goals was to correct those kinds of things, so people would know and understand this was a much better film. Now you can go to some of the generated copies, and they're on a different film stock. So they got different grain and different, defects in them. But the original film was spectacular images.
Mm-hmm.
And
You
Bob
could,
Gimlin said that they saw her for a lot longer than what they have film of.
Right.
well,
That,
I don't doubt that. I don't
yeah,
doubt that at all. I defer to the witness there. It's ideal in images. So, whatever I have to work with film wise, I go with.
All right, cool.
And
All right, cool. Leo, you got any questions?
um, hi, MK. My name's Leo. I live in North Carolina. Nice to meet you.
nice to
Um,
meet you too.
I'm sorry that you hurt your ribs. I've had broken ribs, and it's not fun.
No, it's
Um,
been kind of rough on me here the last few days. I made a misstep walking the dog and hit the deck, and I had my fist balled up around the leash, and it just went
uh-huh.
right under my rib cage and just broke one. But I don't know how
I
many it
um,
broke. I heard them
I
crack.
know, I know. You know something's wrong, and about the fourth day after, you can't breathe anymore. It kind of gets worse before it gets better.
Yeah,
Um,
Yeah.
that's,
but yeah, sorry, and hope you heal fast. My question is, um, your opinion on the Independence or Fourth of July um, film. Now, I love that piece of film. Now, I've had a number of people say they have decided that it was a hoax. I watched your piece on it. Um, if it was a hoax, it's a darn good one, in my opinion. But who am I? What are your thoughts again on that?
remind
The
me
one,
of what.
So,
the one where the Sasquatch picks up the baby from behind the rock and kind of runs off with it.
Yeah, gotcha. I remember that one. Yeah. Well, it's like this as far as hoaxes go. Um, if you just blanket, you just say all films of Sasquatch are hoaxes and misidentifications, you wouldn't be wrong that much.
Right.
It's a rare thing to get a Bigfoot on film, and it's a rare thing to even encounter one. To
Right.
have a piece of photography equipment there, and to have the right film in it, and to have the right distance and the right lighting, and the odds are way against you that you're going to get it. So, but
See if it'll work out there. Go.
people beat the odds. Sometimes they do what the odds say they shouldn't be able to do, and I always keep that
Yeah.
in mind, that you don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater. I'd rather be totally wrong, totally, just, completely fooled, than to throw something out that was real. It's too hard to come by.
I can agree with that. And that's what, and one of my mottos is, if we weren't there, we didn't see it ourselves, who are we to say?
Yeah, just I do a lot of deferring to the witnesses. If I can't get enough on the film to tell me one way or another, then what the witnesses saw or experienced went be above and beyond film. So I defer to them.
Yeah.
okay.
Cool.
Uh,
Thank you.
all right. What about you, Nikki?
Yeah, I got a couple of questions. Hello, sir. My name's Nikki Cologne. I'm in Texas, and
Nice to meet you.
nice to meet you. Thanks for coming on. My questions actually don't really have to do with
Oh,
P&G or with any of the videos, other than to ask you if there was anything in the past that you regretted breaking the video down and posting. Was there anything that you ever thought like, oh my God, why did I even do that? Or did that ever occur?
That's a good question. Uh, I don't think I regret it because even the cases where I've been wrong, and I don't mind being wrong. You know, I really don't. It's all in an effort. I don't want to fail to be right. That's what I don't want to do. If I don't want to just shy away from something or to dismiss it, but because I don't want to get in trouble with people, you know, or you know that I think that when that one piece of evidence comes along, and it's like a once in a lifetime thing, you don't want to be throwing it out, you know. So no, I really don't have any regrets. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong, you know. But it's with good intentions, and it's trying to be right. Uh, you know, trying to get at the you know the nuts and bolts of that film and see what it is.
Yeah.
And you get better at it. You start out, I mean, you get better at it like anything. You know, you work at it. You develop techniques that tell you more. I've gone back to the Patterson film a dozen times and used newer techniques, some stuff that I came up with that would clarify it more, that would give you a better look. So I redo the whole film again, but because I think it's worth it. You know, you get 1% improvement, you're going to see about 10 new things by and large.
Right.
So
Yeah, I think that's where my question kind of came from, is that you've gone back to the PG film so many times. You know, I didn't know if it was because you found new innovative programs or way to run the film, or was it you just felt you needed to do it again because you didn't get it right, or you know, but
oh
that
no,
kind of
it's new stuff comes along and new techniques, and you know, a film is a record of time. Really, it's a time machine, and you get these frames, and there's missing time in between the frames. So you know, uh, if you slow it down to like 16 frames per second on your camera, you go below 16 frames, you're going to start to get a lot of jitter. You know, a flicker they call it. So what do you do about the missing time between the frames? Well, there's a new technique that I came up with that fills that time accurately. It may not fill it completely, but you use the preceding frame and you use the aft frame and you make a meld of the two for the in-between that's missing.
So you just take
So
the two and put them together.
but you have to be very careful about doing it. You do it in a 50% transparency a piece.
Oh, okay.
Okay. So and of course you're going to have movement during that time. So like if the arm swings up, okay, you got to target what you want to look at. On the latest one, I targeted the when I was looking kind of at her back, I targeted there's a one spot right there between her shoulder blades that I could see consistently on each frame, and I targeted that. And so the hand swing and the head movement are just a little bit blended. You know, they're not quite as sharp as it is up and down her back. Now, if I wanted to go look at her head, I would go redo it with her head aligned with those in-between frames. I call them transition frames. What that does, you're able to produce a film of her with no flicker. In frames per second, which is what it was filmed at, there's quite a bit of flicker. So you're able to slow that film down and it not lose any quality. Everything stays at a high quality. So that's the big advantage of it. You're able to follow movement much better. Like if she's got muscles in her back that's moving, you don't see a jump from one frame into another frame in a different position, and it's jumping. You see the smooth motion. And that's been a very, very productive tool to use with that film. it's produced some really good clips, and it's all 100% coming off that film. You know, it's not an artist rendering or anything like that.
Right, right. Thanks, thanks. So who would you say is your favorite Bigfoot researcher? Who is somebody that you really look up to?
Well, I've got a lot of people I look up. I hate to pick out any one particular person. You know, I've
Uh-huh.
got the folks that have helped me a lot. You know, there's almost too many to name. The people who've gone out in the field with me, like Don Monroe, these people are kind of unsung. You know, they're below the radar type people, but they do an awful lot. And the more higher profiles, like Chris Murphy. Chris Murphy's a Canadian, and he does a lot of publishing, very little field research, but some of the things that he's done have proved to be just of tremendous value when it comes to the Patterson film. He's helped me to attain high quality images, so I can't say enough about him either, but the list is very long. You know, most people want to see the problem solved. You know, so if you can kind of get beyond some of the pettier stuff, most people do pull together that when they see there's a chance to help.
Oh, okay.
Awesome.
All right.
Thank you.
All right. How about you, Bono?
Can y'all hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay. Connie told me I muted myself.
That's right. You're muting that.
I'm sorry, y'all been cutting in and out, and I'm trying to unmute myself. I wasn't really paying attention. I'm sorry.
That's okay. What's your question to MK?
I already asked him a question. Well, if you tell me what y'all talking about before, I could join in on the conversation. Sorry. Wasn't
I
quite.
think Lale had a
In other
question.
words, I was having technical difficulties.
Okay. All right. Connie wants to ask, what is your thoughts on structures?
I'm not catching that. You're cutting out, and now it's froze up.
Okay. MK, can you hear me?
Okay, everybody's
Yeah.
froze up.
Yeah. Okay. Connie
I
wants.
can't hear anything.
Connie wants to know what's your thoughts on structures.
Mine or me?
No, MK.
Oh, MK. All right.
Yeah. What's your thought on structures?
I've come across structures in Bigfoot country, and some of them were, you know, created. They were not natural.
Right.
I didn't see the Bigfoot actually make them,
Right.
but I'm pretty convinced that they do make them, and that their meanings that they have are multiple. You know, I found a rock stack in Bluff Creek, maybe about 200 yards downstream from the old Patterson film site, and it was so fresh that it had wet sand on it.
Ooh.
And we made our way on up to the film site. I heard a tree, I guess you could call it a tree knot. It had so much reverberation. I mean, it was something like a limb, like a green limb, that when he hit the tree, it rung like a bell. And I looked down, you know, there's a lot of willows growing there now, and I looked kind of down low under the willows, and I saw a figure walking along the hillside off on the other side. There's no way to get him on film because he was quickly out of view through that willow. Excuse me.
Oh, okay.
Hurts to cough.
Yeah, I seen on one of your videos that where you was down like on the creek bed, and somebody was filming. Look up.
See, now I can't hear anybody. Everybody's froze up.
I can hear you. I can hear you, Fred. But
Okay.
Check with MK, make sure he's all right with his ribs.
Yeah, he already said he was. Okay.
No, well, no, he coughed. He might need a second.
Oh, you need a second.
I'm gonna get a drink of water here.
Okay, go ahead. Bono.
All right.
Somebody's gonna have to text Bono and let him know that he's the one having the difficulties.
All right, well, go ahead and tell him.
Okay.
Okay. Anyway, like I said, you was on the creek. You was on the creek bed, or somebody was, and you were filming up the creek, but there was something on the right-hand side of the creek underneath the brush. Was that one of your guys, or was that a possible squatch that day?
I have interviewed those guys and questioned them to the point of losing their friendship. They said it was not them. I had left them on the mountainside and went ahead. So I don't know how they could possibly have come up there that quickly and gotten in position to do that. No, it wasn't them. I didn't even know that that was on there. I loaned that tape to a friend of mine who wanted some of the background footage of Northern California to sell as stock footage, and he was out of work, and I told him, well, sure, take the film and get what you want off of it. And I was 7 years getting it back.
Ow.
When I finally did get it back, I went to review it, and frame by frame, and I saw that white, whatever it is, that white rag or bag or whatever, I saw it move. It was still, the subject was in the shadows, so I couldn't see him very well until I actually brightened up the film. As far as as far as I'm concerned, there was no one else down there with us. We were 25 miles back in there. That anyone else?
Okay, MK.
It's not a Sasquatch. If it wasn't a Sasquatch, it missed a good chance to be. It was living like one.
Yeah, because I noticed it was playing with like a cup or a bowl or something in that video. You know, because you could see the hand, and you
Went
could see
completely dead.
and it's like complete, and it's like it was playing with it and stuff like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, we're having
A lot of
problems right now.
firefighters in there. They had a lot of fires in there, and when they left a lot of stuff.
Okay.
You know, rags and stuff, and bags and rags and things that they carried with them fighting those fires. So I assumed it found something. You know, it found what they left. Right in that same area, we found what appeared to be a fetus. It looked to me like it was. It had an umbilical cord and had a sack that you could see something was in the sack. I regret, you asked about regrets. I regret not immediately leaving with that thing. Don put it in a plastic bag, and then it spoiled and got real stinky, and he threw it away, but we at least should have cut it open. Because it was right. It was right there where the figure was.
So you think it might have been a sacrifice, possibly?
I don't know. It looked like a fetus.
Like a miscarriage?
Yeah, like a miscarriage. To me, I got that. At least, I'm not an expert on anything like that, but
right.
I got the impression that's what it was, because what appeared to be an umbilical cord.
Yeah, because I found afterbirth and blood in certain bedding areas in my area, you know, and I didn't see the umbilical cord, but I found a lot of you know, the afterbirth stuff, you know, but I didn't find the what the baby was in or anything, you know. But the way the bedding area looked, it was like 8 or 9 foot wide and about 13 foot long, and it was surrounded by sticks, and then it had feces all the way around that. So I'm assuming when the baby's born, when the baby sees that and smells that feces, it scares her, and it stays there next to its mom until the mom's ready to get up and leave with it.
Well, this was all, that particular trip was full. It was just so much Bigfoot stuff down there.
Yeah.
There was a circle around a bare area where nothing was growing, and a circle of trees were broken off that were 3 or 4 inches. Some of them were. I mean, big, huge limb breaks, tree breaks. And it must probably was 15 or 20 of them, all in a circle around that place. Uh, we went there in August, and when we went back in October, they had faded considerably. The freshness, and so I know it wasn't going all the way back to the snow. This was really fresh when we got there in August. It wasn't
Ah.
very old.
Oh,
So
okay.
we went up the mountain probably some 1,500 feet, and it was really hard to do. It was like 45 degrees. Excuse me.
In the world?
What the?
Yeah.
What was that?
Somebody's phone ringing. Sound like.
Can y'all?
Oh, okay. Now, what was you saying, MK? Okay, what was you saying? MK. Are you
Yeah.
there?
Can you hear me?
It might have been his phone because he said, "Excuse me."
Okay, okay.
So he might have had to answer the phone.
Oh, okay. So you still there, or you on the phone?
He's still there.
Okay.
MK, can you hear us?
There's Paul.
Okay, we have Paul
that's
Mosley on the line too. Now, MK, you still there? I guess he's still on the phone.
you can hear us.
Yeah.
Dang.
What?
You can, Fred, you can skip me for now and let Paul.
Sorry about that. A motorcycle went by.
Okay. No. Say what now? Wait, who's saying what now? Is MK on the phone?
I said skip me and don't Paul since he's new on and get MK back. Mr. Davis, are you with us?
How about you, MK? You got a copy?
Maybe he answered the phone and it froze him up for a minute.
Okay.
Yeah, he's froze up. That's for sure.
Tell him to. Someone tell him to go back out and come back in, because he's on a Wi-Fi.
How?
Just message him.
Okay.
Oh, what am I doing? Okay, Paul, how you been doing?
Hang on.
Yeah, I see it.
Anybody hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yep, we can hear you.
All right.
How you been doing?
I just got off work,
Yeah.
man.
You just
Oh,
got
wait
off
a
work?
minute. I got
Work.
Yeah, you look a little ragged there.
Thanks. Appreciate that.
Oh well, we'll take with that.
What's that
Okay,
long island iced tea? I think it was a little bit extra rum or tequila in it.
Ooh, yeah.
It was good though.
Steve said it's a good show.
Do what?
Steve said it's a good show. I said, come on.
Okay, but I guess
Hang on, I got so many messages open, I can't message nobody else.
read
I
your
can't
messages.
get my.
Yeah. But anyway, yeah, we got MK on here, but I think he popped off, so we're trying to see if someone can message him. And okay, here he comes back. Okay, we got you back there. Are you ready?
All right.
All right. Okay, we got Paul Halsley on here for us here too. Paul, you want to ask MK a question, or a couple of questions, whatever?
Oh, I'm just glad to see MK on here. I was watching a documentary not too long ago where they were talking about Bill Munns and how he restabilized the Patterson-Gimlin film, and I thought, yeah, they ain't seen MK's because I think he did a better job of it, you know.
Well,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
appreciate. I don't like to talk about other people's efforts. You know, I admire anybody that dons the mantle of Bigfoot researcher.
But now, did you not do a recent rendition of that footage in a thermal type image?
No, actually, I did the rendition of it in extreme high quality with the new processing, and then this gentleman named Ryan Reading from up there in Pennsylvania, he took that
Yes.
and did thermal.
Right. I had a question for that. Seeing as how that there's really no accurate way to distinguish the temperatures, is that more like doing it in a negative sense to where it's showing the highlights and the low, um, you know, between the difference?
Temperatures.
Because I know it's not, well, it can't show the actual temperature.
Well, you know,
But I was wondering.
I have no idea what he did. You know, that's something he did. Uh, I did the positive images. How he turned it into an infrared looking video, I don't know.
But that's what it was. It was the infrared looking. It wasn't actually an infrared.
No, there's no. It certainly was an infrared film it was taken. I know, but you know, there may be some ways of see color. It can be read in temperature. A matter of fact, you know, you go your reds or your hots and your blues are cool. You know, you can, the whole spectrum can be converted to temperature, and that must have been something of what he did. I don't know for sure, but that's which it would not be the same as actual infrared. It would just be the temperature of the color of Patty as she actually was. I don't understand how it could be done myself, but I don't want to say that.
Yeah, I can see that. I can see that. Well, I got one very interesting question. I've been bugging to ask you about this. You showed a video that it was on a farm, and the person put the camera facing the mirror in the room facing out toward the barn. You had two 8 foot white one and a black one having a little ruckus there, and they went. You see them playing, then they disappeared, and all of a sudden you see them look like someone put dynamite up their tushy, and they all butted, and this massive squatch come out. Now, my question is,
Yeah,
how tall was that squatch? Was he over 12 foot tall?
I would have to say yes. You know, I stood in that spot and I saw myself. You know, all the dimensions. Uh, that is extremely tall individual. That's why those others look so small. That's why they ran from him like they did. Uh, the whole situation there is, you know, when you find out, I found out from the people involved what was actually going on, that they were able to get that video, and it's really an outstanding thing. It took months and months and months and months of moving old tires around. Uh, they, they, these tires started out way out in the woods near a bridge, and they saw that they were moving them around at night, and so they took them all and chained them together, and really started a process where they continually moved these tires closer and closer and closer back toward this farmhouse, and finally had it in the garden behind the house, right there in the edge of the woods. And then they took them and staked them out in the garden. And these things were running. That was their. it turned into an obsession, and they would run out there and try to pull those tires off that stake. They'd hear a car, take off running back to the woods. Then they'd hang around for a while, come back out and do it again. And when you see those two fighting each other, they're fighting over those tires.
Oh, okay.
They're actually fighting over the possession of those tires, and the big guy steps out and he ends the whole scuffle.
Now, was them people habitating those squatches, or they just happened to be in the area at the time?
I hate to call them habituators. I think they were just trying to get a reaction. They would try first thing, then another and another, and if they found something that worked, they'd stay on it and try to get them milk it for everything they could. And I think it was just really good researchers. They were just doing the right things. They couldn't get them on camera at first. They started filming into the mirror because they saw they were hanging around behind the cameras. So they used the mirror and they started to get footage, and it's I think it's an outstanding piece of work, but I would not recommend it to anyone who had them on their property. I would not recommend trying to draw a Bigfoot onto your property.
Yeah.
Where you yourself are living is not a wise thing to do.
Right.
They did it and they survived it, but it's no guarantees there.
Oh, okay. Bono, you still floating around there?
Yeah, I'm floating around.
Okay, it's your turn. Knock them out.
Well, I'm just curious. Why you think they were interested in the tires? I mean, I'm baffled by that.
No one really knows. The researchers themselves don't know.
Uh-huh.
They just saw that at night they were being moved. One of the guys told me when I went there, he told me that they drug these tires up into a tree, and I mean this was up in a tree, and these things tore the tree down to get them down. They just literally tore the tree. So, no one knows. They just fascinated. They just were obsessed with these tires.
Wow.
Now these people, they were filming with VHS camcorders, correct?
Some were, and some were security cameras of the day. That also recorded. But they had to have a cable, long cable.
Now I got one question. One more question. No, I'm sorry. Do we have access to that video? Is it on YouTube?
Yeah, I've seen it.
I haven't seen it.
It's called an altercation video.
Altercation video?
Yeah.
Okay. I'll be sure to check that out. That sounds interesting. Sorry, go ahead.
Okay. Shaky, do you have a question for Mr. M.K. Davis?
That's all right.
Well, yeah, Shaky!
What's happening? Mr. Davis, it's a
Thanks,
pleasure
Steve.
meeting you.
Same here.
I'm just getting on, if you don't mind me asking, what triggered you to get into this in the beginning?
Yeah, I was telling them earlier that I got kind of backed into Bigfooting through my astronomy. I was involved with astrophotography, and astrophotography is taking pictures of space objects with a telescope. And I got quite good at rescuing faint details, and when it comes down to Bigfooting, if you're able to do enhancements that will let you see things that are barely there, you'll do well in Bigfooting, especially the photography end of it. And I saw a couple of frames from the Patterson film that were of such high quality that they got me interested. And I felt like that if I could improve that film enough, it would tell its own story. So that's what got me started, and that's been darn near 20 years ago.
Wow.
That's cool. Leo, how about you? You got a question?
Um, yes, I do. Well, one thing when you said tell its own story, that's kind of what Fred says in his research. Is if you look at the breaks in the structures and the track, and you look at them and use your common sense and decipher them and let them teach you, and it will tell you the story. Um, but my other, just a comment I was going to make about the tires. You know, when we were kids, we loved to play with tires. You know, and make swings out of them, roll in them, stack them up, do this and that. You guess, perhaps, that maybe Sasquatch just, they're living in the woods alone, they're bored, all they do is eat and try to hide. Maybe they like to play with tires. Maybe it's, like a
Well,
Apparently
yo-yo.
so.
and also they only had their cognitive abilities only go so far, so maybe they are more like a 10-year-old, which is something that I learned from one of my Navajo mentors, who said that their minds are more like 10, 11-year-olds, in other words. And that's a point in a human being's life where, your cognitive abilities start to, you're getting more towards
To
being a
mature
grown up,
somewhat.
being a grown up or whatever. But they stop right
Yeah.
there. In other words, they're they're
How far are they? How great their mind capacity is. I
Yeah.
know that they're very good at hiding.
right.
So they have to have a certain amount of intellectual ability to stay hidden, but it's in combination with the ability to throw off harsh weather, wet weather, the kind of things that would drive a human being to come into town
Hmm.
has no effect on them.
Yeah. I got two questions there. The one from Connie is how do you tell the age of a juvenile? How can you like in my area last year I have got photographs out of Yin Yang, and Paul helped me clear up one of juveniles following me because I did a video called "How to Make Them Give a Location Away," and they did. And over a year, I've got like bukus of juveniles on my video. But the closest one that was to me was like 8 feet, and I over zoomed on him, but he was solid gray. But my question is, how can you tell the age of a juvenile squatch?
Well, I have that video called Bigfoot in a Tree, and this was taken at that same property that we were just discussing. And this little one went up a I was
Dadgummit.
informed by the landowner that one was about 5 years old. The way he looked compared to the growner ones is that he had a little bit of a bow-leggedness with the heels together and the toes out, and he had spindly legs, and he had a kind of a primate look to him, where a lot of that disappears as they grow up. So
Hmm.
So it was
Uh,
more like a chimpanzee.
right.
there is that video
Interesting.
that yeah.
Yeah. Another question is, what would be your advice for someone who is first starting to get into who would first start to get into Bigfoot? And what would your advice be to them?
Just be aware of what you're getting into. You know that it's if you're easily frustrated, this is probably not for you. It's you have to go a long time sometimes and through a lot of effort before you get anything solid. It's a rare thing. A Bigfoot evidence is rare. It's hard to come by.
Yeah,
Uh,
I got lucky and had that one come out in front of me. It was, I mean, it shocked me, but I was lucky, And then it piqued my curiosity, And in my area, I have over 130,000 acres of national forest, And in my area, I have the luck of having them. I ain't got to go look for them. They come around my camp at night. They follow me, So I guess I'm lucky to that point. But I tell people, they ask me, how do you know so much about Bigfoot? And I tell them, I learn from what they leave in the woods because they leave information and everything. You just got to know how to decipher it to a point,
Right.
And yeah, and it does take a long time to get where you can start getting evidence, because you got to know what it looks like and what it is before you know how to do it and everything.
yeah, well, there are always places where they seem to be more concentrated, or there's always people who seem to know what to do to get them to stay. The habituators. They uh, they have more encounters than the average fella, but they're doing it differently. Uh,
Right.
like I said, I don't necessarily recommend it because I just think there's not enough known about them that you could get yourself into trouble. If I was habituating them on a piece of property that I didn't live on, that would be
Yeah.
different.
Yeah.
But if you get them coming into your house, and I've got a video, it's a nighttime video of a raid on a chicken house, and the lady came out on her porch and yelled at this Bigfoot,
I
and
remember that one.
this Bigfoot yelled back at her. I mean,
Yeah.
just as belligerently.
Yeah.
Uh,
I saw that. That was cool.
so if you keep continually, it's like as the zoo says, don't feed the animals. There's reasons for it. You get anything, animal, man, or otherwise, dependent on you, and then one day they don't get it. You know,
Yeah.
I saw one take. They had 5 gallon buckets nailed to trees, and in those 5 gallon buckets they would put confections and candy. Uh, and
That's not.
these Bigfoot had gotten used to. Okay, I don't know what that is.
I don't know.
It's cleared up.
Yeah.
Uh, the Bigfoot were taking candy and stuff out of these 5 gallon buckets, and this Bigfoot came up to this 5 gallon bucket, and they didn't leave a candy in it. They left a loaf of bread, and this Bigfoot, this loaf of bread, a half a mile. I mean, uh, he it pissed him off. He was expecting to get a Snickers bar, and he got a loaf of bread, and it just really made him mad.
You actually got that on video
So
where it shows him throwing the loaf of bread out in front of the camera, didn't it?
right. He chunked
Yeah.
that son of a
Didn't know
gun.
it was a loaf of bread at first. You had to kind of go
I
back and
thought it
look
was
at
a
it.
bottle. I named bottle tosser at first.
Yeah.
The guy who took the video told me it was a loaf of bread. I went back and looked at it, and it sure enough was.
Mm. Yeah, I don't believe in habituate, because I go out on national forest, and I let them, come to me and everything. But I think it's a little risky to habituate something of that massive size because I hate to see what it would do if it would get hold of a human.
Right. Yeah, that's what makes it so dangerous. And I heard a similar story about some people that was habituating with apples and vegetables and fruit, like that. And this one time they gave them some turnips, and the Bigfoot got so pissed off, they didn't do anything to the guy or his property. They went next door to another man's property and destroyed all of his garden and everything in his backyard. And I mean, just tore it up like a bomb went off out there because they were pissed about the turnips. So I don't know where I heard that from, but it sounds familiar.
Hmm.
Can you imagine what it was like back in the old days before the dumps, when the old farmers had just the dumps were on the farm? You know what I'm talking about, right? Because when I was a little kid, the dumps. When I was a kid, we went gouging on the dump on the farm. They didn't have dumps back in the day. All the stuff was thrown on the farm somewhere in a gully. I
Yeah.
bet you them things went crazy going up to some of them places.
Hmm.
We burned their trash
Yeah. Well, what's your question,
and,
Leo?
and gave scraps to the dogs.
Yeah. What's your question, Leo?
I forgot it. I told you I forgot it.
All right, Paul, it's up to you.
Well, I've had the privilege of actually talking with MK before on another podcast show.
Right.
Uh, there was something that he had brought up that we got into some real discussion. I won't. He'll probably know what I'm talking about if I was to go ahead and just blurt it out. But we got talking about some of the discrepancies or some of the things with the whole Patterson Gimlin situation, the scenario as to how it all played out, and that's something that I've always been fascinated by and went back to because to me it didn't make sense for a lot of things, the reasons why that Roger Patterson and Bob Gimlin showed up at that particular site on that day. But of course, they were going up there because there had been reports, made. But another group had already been there, and this group was different. They had guns and they had tracking dogs, and there's some speculation, and I've not just heard it from MK. I've heard it from other people as well, that back when that road was being cut through, that they discovered that the Bigfoot were there, and they wanted them gone. They want them out of the way, and that we've even looked at some of the stills from some of the film footage. That is out there. You can find the film footage. It's not private. It's not hidden. Where it looks like that something else happened, and that's been a while back since we've talked about that. And I've gone to several park services here locally in my state, and they fully well know that the Bigfoot are there. And most time their questions for me is not, they don't laugh at me and say, "Oh, you hunting Bigfoot? Ain't no such thing." No, they want to know where I'm looking, and if I find anything, to let them know so they can keep track on these guys. Um, I think for years the government has kept this secret. Um, I mean, I'm not a conspiracy theorist or anything, but MK had brought to my attention a scenario of events that had possibly occurred there, and when that happened, I got to looking more into those kind of same scenarios today, and a lot of the national forests I go in and hunt and look for evidence, they'll all of a sudden have a burn off, and they'll burn 40 or 50 acres or 100 acres or 400 acres, and they say it's to allow the undergrowth to grow up, but I believe that it's actually to maybe push these guys back deeper, or push them into another park. If there's no cover, they're not going to go out anywhere near it. And but MK, you had brought some of that up, and you'd even talked about uh, going to Patricia and talking to her on her property, and then of course she gave you that. Now, what frame was that she let you take and get a copy of?
Actually, there were 5 frames, 5 transparencies that were taken off of her original film, and they were just breathtaking quality. They were truly better than anything that anybody had ever seen off that film. She had them in a
And
shoebox.
And that's where you found those discrepancies, was it not?
Right. And plus,
Okay.
what she told me, it was she talked a little bit about it, about shooting down there. It's
Right.
I went back and re-examined the film because of that visit. And it wasn't something that I was going there looking for. It was something that she wanted to talk about. And I don't. It takes a long time to sit down and explain, and with evidence and with photos, explain the scenario of how that film was taken. But it definitely can be done.
Right.
But it can hardly be. It can't be done very well to people who don't want it. So I tend to shy away from it, because there's only really one person left. That
Yeah.
that was there,
And
and
that's something that he won't even cross that bridge at all. I mean, he don't even look
no,
at it.
he
And I've sat beside
we
him and
had a
asked him.
we had a private conversation about it. He
Yeah.
knows what I know, and he asked me not to do this to him.
Right.
And I really didn't know how that was pursuing the truth was going to do anything to him. But I have a little better understanding about it now. It's extremely complex and evolved situation. And they got a Bigfoot on film in broad daylight, right out in front of the camera, where it was the best
Smacking
possible, where you would never get that to happen under any other circumstance. And so I kind of take my hat off to them. I know that it probably wasn't the right way to do it, but they did it that way, and it was done, and it was successful.
Yeah, I don't think you would have gotten from my research and encounters,
the fact that you
I
have to
found
tell
that
a tale is because people pick up on that. Once they see that you've told, there's some inconsistency.
Mhm. Yeah,
Not really bad for it, but I suffered a lot myself. I failed to even understand why I should suffer. Because I'm just a messenger. I wasn't there. I had nothing to do with it. I just came across this information, and I have always been about transparency. And
Do you think Patricia will ever release the original footage that's in the vault?
I hope she would. I haven't spoken with her in quite a while. It's been probably sent her some material the last time I talked to her. She's a decent person, a really decent person, and she's sat on this for a long time, and she was about ready to tell the tale, and I didn't push it. She said you'd be very amazed at what I have in this house related to Bigfoot.
Yeah.
And I didn't ask to see it. Um, And don't ask me why, but I think there are times when every tender, that you don't want to hurt people. You don't want to cause pain. Uh, and I didn't. I knew that she had had problems with Bob Gimlin, and he called her right there with me sitting there, and you know, she was very, very upset with him, and I was going to be a person she could turn around immediately and kind of get a little revenge on him, you know. Uh, and maybe I sensed that, that I didn't want to be used that way, but she told me enough that I understood what happened.
You
And
okay? You okay to go on, MK?
yeah, I'm okay.
Okay, okay, that's good. Good. Just want to make sure. All right. Let's see. Let's go to Lale. You have a question. Unmute
I
yourself, Lale.
remembered my question. I
All right.
did.
What is it?
Mr. Davis, what are your opinions on the autism theory? Speaking about Sasquatch, if they mentally compared to humans are 12 and that kind of thing. People talk about the theory that maybe they have a type of autism. What are your thoughts on that?
I don't know how autism is a problem. It's something that goes wrong with you, and I don't know how a whole species could have it. You know, um, they kind of act like maybe an autistic person would maybe at times, but then again, they'll turn around and surprise you with some kind of ability that just blows your mind. It's really understood. I guess that's why these people are still researching. It's everything about us poorly understood. We've crossed some bridges. We've made some progress. I think by and large the public is more accepting of it, but we're still not anywhere near what we could call an understanding. You
Right.
know,
I
Right.
agree.
All right.
Well, can
How
I
about?
say something? Wait, hold up.
Yeah.
Can I
Go
say
ahead.
something about that? I don't know if anybody caught me what I was talking about earlier. Now, I have a few Navajo mentors that I speak with from time
Yeah.
to time, and there's this one. It's not a theory. I mean, it's pretty much some of these people, especially this one fella, have been having encounters all their entire lives because their territories, overlap. Okay, and so I trust everything he says, man. He's been experiencing Bigfoot since he could talk, right? Since he was a small child.
This is a
And what he's
Navajo.
Navajo, yeah. And
Okay.
what he's come up with is, even when they're fully grown, okay, the the capacity of their brain is about the same as in other words, their cognitive abilities stop at around equal to 11 or 12-year-old, human being, 10, 11, 12 years old, right there. That's it. It doesn't get any more advanced than that. So yeah, they throw temper tantrums. Yeah, 10-year-olds, yeah, they throw temper tantrums. I mean, they
Yeah.
get giddy, they get stupid, they get destructive, and then on the other hand, they can do things that are quite intelligent. You know, so and then back to what we can study, like gorillas. I think that with the smartest gorilla, or what is it, a bonobo ape, what had the intelligence of a 3-year-old, and that was their capacity. That was it. You know, but I think the Bigfoot goes a little further than that, and that's still just a theory. I'm just going back to what I was taught by someone who, you know, has been experiencing Bigfoot all his life, and I trust his word. I trust anything a Navajo says, man.
Oh,
Yeah,
Because they,
I
they're,
would agree
they're
to a certain extent. Yes,
yeah,
Native Americans and their
it,
folklore has a lot of truth in it.
exactly, and their reservations overlap. They're always having to deal with these creatures. So yeah, I trust it, and I believe that. I think he's got something there.
I
yeah.
Could
saw him.
very well be.
The one that climbed the tree, the little small one that was 5 years old. Um, he climbed that tree, did some vocalizing, shook the top of the tree, and the reason why he did that was because they were feeding them. They would leave a really nice country meal out there in the woods on a stump, and this little fella was going up there and ringing the dinner bell. So I know he had enough intelligence through the habituation process that he was calling others to come in, that the food was there. So, you know, I don't know where he would end up, 20 years down the road, but he had enough sense to do that at that early age.
Well, I know we had a Sasquatch come into a camp, and he went to one of those blue totes, and I've even had him go to the back of my truck. And it was one of those blue totes you get at Walmart, and it's where a couple others that were camping kept their food. And it slid it back and forth and everything, but it never opened it. It was almost as if it didn't know how. And I've even had him stand at the back of my truck looking at a cooler, but never opened the cooler to see what was in it. But then you see Mitch Waite had some video footage of where one actually came up, opened up a cooler, and got a soda out of it, and then came back and got a pack of crackers. So I mean, when you say that the intelligence of a 12-year-old, well, I tell you what, I've got some grandchildren that are 10 to 12 years old, and they can figure out stuff that I can't even comprehend.
That's what I'm talking about.
I've got a 5-year-old. I got a 5-year-old that FaceTimes and texts my wife and.
So I think
I think
it just depends really on what.
Now you're talking about the
what
digital world.
Heck yeah.
Well, they're taught from the very beginning to survive. I mean, they're taught from the minute they're born. They were making this point out in a documentary I was watching the other night. It's one actually that I hadn't seen before, where it had Bill Munns and it had several others in it. But Ivan, correct me, NK. What was his name? Is it Ivan Swarsky? What was his name?
I'm not really sure.
I know you're talking
The
about.
fellow, I know, the fellow from Russia, the scientist from Russia.
Igor Bortsev.
No, it's not. It's not. Ivan Sanderson.
Ivan Sanderson. Okay, got you.
Yes, there you go, Ivan Sanderson. And I was watching one on him. He was talking and about his a lot of things that he had looked into as far as in comparison. And he made a good point. He said these things are much like the way a chimp is, which when a chimp is born, the minute it comes out of its mother's womb, it is able to grab a hold and hold on to its mother, and she takes off through the jungle. And so these things are the same way. But, that when they're born, they're immediately, able to survive and adapt. It's bred into them genetically.
But Ivan Sanderson was an extraordinary person. He had several degrees in different disciplines, and he was as far as gathering data, he worked for the old OSS, the predecessor of the CIA. He traveled this world over in his cryptozoological pursuits and other zoological pursuits. But at the same time, he gathered data for the CIA or the old OSS as well. So this was a man who didn't get a lot of things wrong. You know, and I've been very
Mm-hmm.
impressed with the things I've read of his that that covered a lot of details. And even though there might have been very little known about, say, the abominable snowman, what was available, he had it down there. So people like him are rare birds. They come along once in a while, and they're huge contributors, and they get things kicked off and going. But we don't last forever. You know, we get old and we pass away, and other people take up the torch. And sometimes when other people do, we go backwards instead of forwards.
Yeah.
So we have to figure out a way
Well,
to make those leaps
Sanderson,
forward. Go ahead.
Sanderson looked at the Patterson-Gimlin film. Well, before he even looked at the footage, they showed him just a photograph of Patty, and he automatically, was interested. His eyebrows went up. He was interested, and then when they showed him the video footage, because he studied, locomotion, and he studied, and he right off the bat he said that's a living creature. That's a living, breathing, thing. It's not a man in a suit. And in this same documentary, they were talking about, how for years we've said, well, we don't have a type specimen, all this blah blah blah. Well, we did have one. It was called the Minnesota Iceman, but unfortunately, it's vanished. It's disappeared. Nobody knows where it's at.
The original Minnesota Iceman, not the one they have down in Texas now.
Right.
The original one was most likely from Bluff Creek. It appeared about that same time. It had a hole blown in its chest. Shot in the back.
Wrist.
Broken bone in the arm, and eye blown out of the socket from behind.
Dang.
It was most likely from Bluff Creek, and it was sort of fished out there to see if people would accept it, and they decided after they were almost arrested at the Canadian border for having a dead body, they decided to give up on that and switch it with a dummy.
Yeah. Have they? Does anybody have DNA from that?
I doubt a DNA was a pipe dream at that time.
Oh, okay. All right.
It was it had blood in the ice that Hubelmans and Sanderson both saw that it was putrefaction. Yeah. You could smell it.
Right.
In spite of being even under ice, it will deteriorate. It's not so cold that it won't deteriorate. It just slows it way down. The man who was handling him, Frank Hansen, said that the owner, if he told you the owner's name, that you would instantly recognize it because it was somebody big in the entertainment industry. Well, one of the people who was alleged to have been involved in the killing down there at Bluff Creek was a man named Ivan Marks. Ivan Marks worked for Walt Disney and had retired to Burn, California. He made Disney so much money, he was responsible for all of those old wildlife documentaries. The jaguar fights the anaconda, and the elk fight each other, and Ivan Marks shot all of that. He trained those animals. They weren't in the wild. They were trained animals.
Oh.
So Ivan Marks was out there in Bernie, California, and developed an interest in Bigfoot. Now, my source told me, an old bear hunter, that Ivan Marks was one of the ones who was out there who did the shooting with that group. So if that were the case, then maybe the entertainment mogul they were talking about may have been Walt Disney.
Ah, okay.
Well, see, Walt Disney ended up having his own self frozen.
Right.
You know, cryogenics was in its infancy, but he was experimenting with it.
Mhm.
So you know,
That's right.
they tried to kind of put this out there to see if they could go further and tell the whole story, but they almost got arrested, so they decided to give it up. And you know, I think they wanted to come forward because they thought it was an important thing for the world, but you know, when the circumstances around about how they got it prevented them from doing it. They tried to do it in a kind of a clandestine way, you know, with that Iceman, but it just didn't work out, and they gave up on it.
Oh, okay. Steve, you ready?
I gotta mute myself. Yeah, what's up?
All right, go ahead. It's your turn.
All right, Mr. Davis. About cameras and how game cameras at all catching these things. Uh, you seem to know a lot about cameras. Why can't we develop a long range kind of camera that would have
Well,
some kind of trigger device on it that would get a snapshot of a long shot?
well, I mean, they can take pictures of what you're eating on your picnic table from space,
Oh yeah.
but whenever they zoom a camera in that far, they change the focal ratio and they lose the field of view. So when by the time it gets down to your plate on your picnic table, that's all they can see. They can't see your house. They can't see your yard. So when you got a narrow field of view, that narrow, then you can't do much searching. You know, it's like looking through a long tube. You only see what's around the end of that tube.
Yeah.
But if you look through a little short tube, you see everything that's a big field of view on the other end. So the farther you are away, and the more you zoom, the longer that tube is, and the less you see except what's right in front of it. That's called orthoscopic.
So
Uh-huh.
why do you think that the game cameras aren't working? Do you think? I mean, are they set? Is there something in them that puts off these cameras, or you know?
Y'all, pardon me just a minute. I'm getting low on
Okay.
my
Yeah.
battery, and I'm gonna step in there to my bedroom and get my cord.
Okay.
And y'all might hear other folks talking, and maybe my
That's
bird or my dog.
Beauty.
that's okay.
God bless you.
Mute before you burp on live air.
Sorry.
Hey,
Gee.
that'd be fine though.
Well, we have the technology now in the military to fly over, 20,000 feet in the air with a remote control plane and see, people walking around in a building. We have the technology, we have the abilities, but the one thing they were saying in that documentary the other night was that it's just not something that mainstream science wants to entertain. They just really don't want to entertain Bigfoot. They want to just really,
No,
it's
they
not worth
don't.
their time.
Hey, I know
But
I'm
we've got technology, we've got it, and we've got pictures of them, we got video footage of them. Now, game cameras, as far as that goes, I imagine they see the infrared diodes when they go off, or they hear the click of the camera, or whatever, or maybe it's they see you actually putting it out, and then when they see you put it out, they just avoid that area. And I know I can put a game camera up, and they won't come within a mile, but I can take
Yeah.
them game cameras down, and they'll show up. They're more intelligent than what we think, just because they're not, writing a thesis about how a tree grows doesn't mean they're not intelligent.
Yeah.
Um,
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, my question is to MK is what is the best way to observe dermal ridges on a foot or a hand if you're in the field?
Well, if you're talking about a Bigfoot's foot or hand, there's a lot of things have to come together. First of all, there's got to be dermal ridges on the foot.
Right.
You know, if you're walking barefooted, depending on the type of terrain you're walking in, you may have more scars on your feet than dermal ridges.
Yeah.
That's some now in your softer ground areas, you know, your lowest soils, you know, you don't get that kind of wear on your foot. So you may get it down here in the south. You're more likely to get a dermal ridge. It needs to be a clay, really fine textured
Yeah.
clay or something that even cave dust. People have gotten dermal ridges in the fine dust that, you know, that settles in thousands of years in a cave.
Right.
Um,
Right.
and then if you want to get it on your plaster, it goes back to the expertise of the person that's doing the pouring.
Right. Okay. All right, that sounds cool.
They just disappear under any kind of pressure. You know, you can blow it away with your mouth. So a person's got to be really good. Maybe use the hairspray. If it's in the clay, it's a little more firmer. It's better. It holds that impression. So
Right.
I'm looking at a cast right now that is a cast of a person's foot, and he demonstrated dermal ridges. He casted his own foot as under a demonstration.
Wow. Yeah.
And
Can
pardon?
can you see dermal ridges good and compare them on a photograph? Let's see, like someone took a picture or something like that, and you're
Well,
trying to see if someone has it or like that.
you get a blue light, a blue flashlight, or pin light, and go, you know, cut your outside lights, ambient lights down, and just kind of come from the side, and put your camera on a tripod, and photograph as you move that blue light down at an oblique angle down the side of the casting. And you'll be amazed at how much of that stuff is on some of these that are not hoaxed. You know,
Oh,
it'll pick it up. A lot of times it's just hard to see. But what you do, you create relief using that oblique lighting. When you create relief, then you can see it. You can photograph it.
okay, cool. Bono, you got any
Yo,
questions? You got any more questions, buddy?
yeah.
Okay, go for it.
Wait. Oh, do I have a question? I thought you was going to ask me a question.
No, do you have a question?
Okay, let me see.
Okay.
Now, is it a known fact, Mr. Davis, that the dermal ridges on a Bigfoot, or in other words, ours are horizontal, theirs are vertical from heel to toe? I mean, that's what it looks like.
I'd say it's not a known fact.
No. Okay. But
The reason why I say that is that when it first came out that might be the case, it was I think it was Mr. Jimmy Chilcutt,
mm-hmm.
and he was looking at a cast that later on was proven to have produced artifacts that weren't dermal ridges. It was artifact of the casting process they called wicking, where your plaster would wick the moisture out and progress it and create progressive lines, vertical up, horizontal up and down the foot.
Right.
And Jimmy took that to be a regular primate. So this is he says this is a distinct trademark, and it turned out to be not so. Later on, a fellow by the name of Crowley, he demonstrated the casting of a print that produced that exact same artifact on his. So that's when Jimmy kind of decided that he really didn't want to do too much more Bigfooting. You know, and I, I really don't blame him, but because
I
he
love
had
you, okay.
he had everything to lose. He had everything to lose. Jimmy
I
did. You know,
think
when
Jimmy
you take your profession,
Chilcutt is a good guy though, and did his best, gave his best opinion with what he was
absolutely,
working.
absolutely, he did.
Yes,
Um,
yeah.
he like I said, he had a lot to lose. Um, and you know, when you get a little bit overconfident, and I think that happened to Jimmy, and then this thing came up with the wicking and everything. It really set him back. He's a proud man. He's accomplished a tremendous
Yeah.
amount in the field of forensics, and
Mhm.
you know, but like a lot of other people, including myself, Bigfoot will set you down. It will set you back.
Mhm.
You know, you have to be, if you want to continue in it, you have to kind of be willing to be wrong.
Right.
Um, you
Come
know,
on, brother.
and
Preaching.
if it's gonna hurt, if it's gonna hurt your profession, you probably don't need to do it.
Right. But
True that.
is there a common denominator as far as Bigfoot prints go? What do they actually look like? What is the average? Do they have dermal ridges like ours, or are they different? Not saying the opposite way, or vertical or whatever. But are they anything like ours?
Well, the biggest, most distinguishing thing that you can count on is they're usually flat-footed,
Hmm.
but there are people who are flat-footed too. I'm flat-footed.
Right.
Um, if you've got a 13 or a 14 inch and it's 5 inches down in ground that's fairly firm, that's
Hmm.
probably a Bigfoot.
Right. So yes, it's the depth because they're so heavy. Now, and
It's just they're very very heavy.
yeah.
John Green pointed that out a few years back when he offered $100,000 to anyone who could replicate the Patterson film tracks. And he
Hmm.
said not their way, but their depth. If you could produce that same depth in that same substrate, he would give you
Hmm.
$100,000. So John was very confident that it
Hmm.
couldn't be done, and he was probably knew that it couldn't be done because they're so heavy.
Right.
Well,
Right.
Uh,
MK, I think what researchers need to realize is that when you talk about a foot that has been, exposed to the elements 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year for, say, 35, 40 years, the bottom of that foot, is it, like we call it what, the Osman's pad? Um,
yeah,
is
that fatty pad with a tough callus on
right.
it.
I doubt very seriously that you're going to be able to get discernible dermal ridges. And
Probably
so,
not.
right. Now, you might get on the outer edges around the ends of the toes. I've got an actual footprint cast that has the dermal ridges, but they're on the tip of the toe and the sides of the toe. But on the bottom, the flat part of the pad, I mean, you take something that it calluses up over years and years and years. I'm sorry, I just don't believe you're going to find. You may see some artifacts like scars, and then of course when you're pouring your plaster cast, the how you pour it. It's if you pour it like a cake, like you pour it in cake batter, it might progress forward, creating horizontal lines. It may make you think that they're dermal ridges when actually they're not dermal ridges. It's just from the way the plaster was poured. Um, we're so quick to jump on the dermal ridges, and then we want to say, well, are they like ours, or are they like primates? Do they go in circles, or are they go in lines? Well, until we have one actually laying in front of us where we can look at its bottom of its feet and actually, uh, say without a shadow of doubt, we don't know. Uh, but I know that one thing is clear: their foot matches more like my foot
Hmm.
then a gorilla's foot matches my foot. And that prehensiled toe is not present in the footprint of a Sasquatch. That toe
No.
kicking off to the side is not there in a Sasquatch print. It's like mine.
Right.
And so to definitely say, I think that's one of the biggest things right now that's killing the Bigfoot community is that you've got a fence, and you're on one side of the fence or you're on the other side of the fence, and that one side of the fence says ape primate, and the other side of the fence says human primate. Well, what we got to realize is that we're all primates, period. But when I compare what the evidence I found on Sasquatch, it matches more to a human primate than it does to a ape type primate. Even the hands don't match.
Okay.
And so, you know, as far as the dermal ridges, I just sometimes I get irritated when, you know, somebody focuses on one thing. And you heard the man say for himself when he was on here that the so-called expert of primate dermal ridges realized that he was wrong.
Yeah. Okay, we got
And
5 more minutes. We got 5 more minutes
knew
left.
that.
Go ahead, Paul. We got 5 more
I knew
minutes
that
left.
that
Go
guy had
ahead.
said that. No, I'll let you go, Fred. You go ahead, buddy.
No. I said we got 5 minutes left. Go ahead and finish your question. Go ahead and finish what you were saying. Very interesting.
Oh, well, I just think it was very interesting that that MK confirmed the very things that people are saying was what they were going by as authority. You
Yeah.
know, because here at Jimmy Kilcutt, you know, the forensic scientist that studies ape dermal ridges all of a sudden realizes, hey, I may have bitten off more than I could chew, and I'm really going up down a rabbit hole I don't want to go in.
Right.
And recants what he claimed. So now, what do? Because everybody is going back and saying, well, the dermal ridges go laterally.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
And another thing, though, Kilcutt also was he supposedly proved Dr. Meldrum's the one that cast that he carries around with him all over the place, you know.
Yeah.
Grace Harbor.
It's almost a perfect cast. It's a beautiful cast. He
Yeah,
carries
it's
it
Grace
with him
Harbor.
everywhere. Supposedly, Kilcutt said that was a fake. That it has, you know, somebody made that. It was human made, and it wasn't a Bigfoot. But
Where's
yeah,
MK?
Jeff. Yeah, I don't know. I think he got cut out. Anyway, Mr. Dr. Meldrum still carries that print around with him. But then again, I wonder now, since Kilcutt, you know, he got kind of,
There he is.
yeah, his research got kind of hairy with that. You know, I mean, is it real or is it fake? I mean, I'm talking about the one that Dr. Meldrum carries around.
Yeah.
Oh, well, the Grace Harbor, actually, the cast is from a trackway. And that trackway was over a mile, wasn't it, MK, I think? Or
Yeah, I think it was a long ways.
it was for a long way. So it wasn't just one track. This was, you know, hundreds of tracks, I guess, and, you know, over a period of a distance. But, you know, and that's something that, you know, even MK will probably tell you that it's not, the track is not, what determines the track is the substrate. And if it's mud, if it's clay, if it, you know, and the weight when it hits the foot hits that substrate, the displacement is what causes the track. And so it can be bigger than the track is actually. You go on a harder surface. I mean, we've got footprints that are still fossilized in stone.
Oh yeah.
And of Neanderthal, there is actually footprints. And now that they've studied and looked at the bone structure of the foot of Neanderthal, they're saying that's very close relative or very close in comparison to Bigfoot, footprints.
Okay, folks, we have come to the end of the show. MK, we certainly thank you a bunch. 'Cause I tell you what, I learned a whole heck of a lot that I didn't know about you, and I'll be
Well,
talking to you. I'll be talking to you sooner or later too. But any last words from the panel? Let's start with Bono.
Yeah. Hey, me. Send me, Fred. Send me that link to that video we were talking about earlier.
Okay,
You know
I
what I'm talking
will.
about? And then MK said the name of the video, and I
Yeah,
damn forgot.
yeah.
altercation.
Altercation. Please send me
Okay.
the MK. I'm not sure if I think we were friends. Are you a member of the Bono's Bigfoot Tavern? My group.
Yeah, I'd have to look. Sometimes people add me and I don't know.
Right.
I
I know
don't
we're
realize
friends.
it.
Yeah. But that's okay.
Yeah, well, I know.
I'll just get Fred to send it to me. I really want to see that video.
Oh, it's a mind blower, I'll tell you.
Yeah.
All
Well, anyway,
right.
nice meeting you, Davis.
Cool.
And you guys, great to be on the panel with you, Fred.
Thank you.
Connie.
I hope you come back again.
I
Thanks
Con
for
will.
having me on.
okay. Connie, got anything to say? Last words.
Connie.
Yeah, I want to thank MK for being here. Couldn't hear half what was going on because it's acting up, but what I did get to hear was great, and I'm a big fan of yours, MK. I love your work.
Well, thanks. I appreciate it. This is sometimes it's a lonely endeavor. I always appreciate people that support me.
Yeah. All right. How about you, Lale? Last words.
Oh, Mr. Davis, thank you so much and for coming on. We all enjoyed it, and it's nice to see your face because in your videos we usually just see the video
The
you're
words.
critiquing and not your face.
Right.
And I hope your ribs feel better soon. And
I
just
appreciate
thank
it.
you so much. We really enjoyed it.
Thank
Cool.
you.
It's a great
Okay.
time.
All right. Nikita.
Thank you. Thank you so much for coming on and talking with us.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Appreciate y'all having me.
Okay. Paul Halsley.
Well, it's of course it's always a joy to talk to MK Davis, and I'm sure there'll be many times we'll probably be in the same place, and we can maybe one of these days, MK, we can throw it all out on the table and see what happens. But
Well, yeah,
till then,
sure. There's
and,
nothing like a live chat.
There you go.
there you go, buddy.
All right. How about you, Shaky?
Yeah, Mr. Davis, it's been a pleasure. You're doing some great work. I really enjoyed watching your stuff, and it's been an honor meeting you. It really has.
Thank you. Same here.
Okay, and as far as I'm concerned, Mr. MK, it was very enjoyable. I learned something, and we will have you back on again.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you. If y'all want to stay on board, or I go off air, we can talk a while. You can if you want, but the podcast is going to end, right?